Sequels are not a new concept in anime and manga. We've seen it a couple of times. Sometimes we've seen reboots. Sometimes, in current day, we have like next generation stories following the children or descendants of previous main characters. Heck, JoJo's is the example of a series that consistently goes from different timelines and eras to different descendants of the original main character from the beginning of the series. I cover Four Knights of the Apocalypse. It is a sequel to Seven Deadly Sins, following primarily the children of the main cast of Seven Deadly Sins for the most part, and some other new characters. Shaman King has a sequel following the main character's children and descendants. This is not a new concept, but Fairy Tail has actually had this concept in the fan base for a long-ass time, especially when the original manga ended. Now, we all had the frustrations of many of the ships not being confirmed or just set in stone, just being in a state of limbo at the end of the series, save for Gajiel and Levi, for the most part. But a lot of fans were kind of speculating, with these ships not being fully confirmed, what would a next generation for Fairy Tail look like? What would the kids of these characters look like? What would be their magic abilities? What would the story be? That's kind of the concept I want to dive into with this little hypothetical. Once 100 Years Quest ends, would we get a continuation? And what would this hypothetical continuation, if it is a Fairy Tail Next Generation type series following the children of our main cast members, look like, and what would it be? What would the magic of these characters be and their abilities? What kind of stories could we see? Who would be essentially their mentor figure? That's my pitch to you guys today. But if you want to see more videos like this in the future and see more Fairy Tail content from me, because I do love this series a whole lot and I want to keep talking about it in any way, shape, or form I can, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Also, I have a bit of a side project going on with a different channel, my channel GW Comics, where I talk about American comic books. If you like comics, I'm going to be talking about primarily DC stuff. I'm going to jump into a massive verse from Image Comics, and I'm going to dabble in some Marvel here and there when I can, depending if there's something that I really want to talk about. It's a side project. It's a passion thing. I love comics also. I want to talk about comics as well. So subscribe there if you want to help me out over there and if you like comics. Now then, let's just jump right into what this hypothetical can in fact be if Mashima decides to stop edging us with the potential canon relationships and actually give us the children for our main cast members. Okay, mini rant over. So, Fairy Tail Next Generation. How long after the events of 100 Years Quest would I set this? Well, I say a good range would be around 15 years at minimum. This would give multiple cast members a chance to grow in age and give a significant amount of time for the children of these characters to grow and develop a personality and start learning their own particular types of magic. We also obviously have Nasha, Natsu, and Lucy's daughter, once she eventually becomes canon, hopefully. We have Grage, who is Grey and Juvia's son. We'll have the multiple children of Gajiel and Levi. We'll probably have maybe one or two of them join as siblings to the hip, similar to how we have the Strauss siblings. They might play a role like that, as the Strauss siblings being there, but not super prominent as well. And lastly, we will have Erza and Jalal's son, name that we do not have, just like the children of Gajiel and Levi, at least until Levi gives birth at the end of 100 Years Quest. These will be our primary cast members. What will their magic be? Well, Nasha will probably most likely inherit Lucy's celestial spirit magic. Just like how it's been throughout the generations of the Heartfilia family, she will most likely inherit Lucy's celestial spirit prowess. She could be just as much of a genius as her mother. And I wouldn't put it past Natsu to try and teach her Dragon Slayer magic. Now, this would also be the same case for maybe one or both of Gajiel's kids, and they could also learn solid script magic from their mother, Levi, as well. Grage could learn both water and ice magic, but it could be that he might have more of an affinity with water magic, and I think it would be interesting if Grage actually became a water make wizard, utilizing the same imaginative abilities as his parents through water magic as a water make wizard. Because I feel like it would make him more of a copycat of Grey if he stays with the ice make magic. But who knows, by utilizing both types of magic, Grage could end up being a powerhouse in his own right. Now also, Jalal and Erza's kid would be an interesting factor, because Grage could learn both Requip magic and celestial body magic, just like Erza has right now. But that would be an interesting thing, especially if their son ends up just mainly going and idolizing his mother Erza for just being the badass that she is, and primarily use Requip, only bring out celestial body magic in small bursts. Because if we're following them as kids, I do not think that, unless he's a genius just like Jalal, he would learn enough celestial body magic at this point to really make it a deciding factor, and it would be a struggle. I feel like a big key point would be to learn over the course of the series how to use celestial body magic in a proper and controlled way. That way he could eventually learn stronger and stronger spells, considering he'd be young. Same with all the cast members, but the point still stands. That would essentially be all the magic that I see them doing. Now, you might be asking, okay, Nasha and the children of Gajiel, they'll have Dragon Slayer magic just like their dads, but won't they turn into dragons if they learn Dragon Slayer magic? Well, that's where their mentor type figure or big sister type or good aunt figure comes in, Wendy. Wendy, I will say, has the biggest power ceiling and potential over the course of anybody in the series, even higher than Natsu. In Hunter's Quest, she's 15 years old. She is on the level of Irene as a high enchantress wizard. She separates concepts. She is an insane powerhouse to the point where I honestly believe that she is stronger than Erza at this point. Probably a top 5 or top 5 member of the guild at this point, in my opinion, or close to it. So, if we skip 15 years later, she'll be in her 30s. She's an adult. She would probably be about as strong as adult Natsu, if not stronger with the power ceiling that she had as a kid. But let's just say around Natsu's level, keep Natsu the strongest character just for consistency's sake, but still have Wendy be an absolute beast. And Wendy probably has the best knowledge of magic outside of the main cast members that is outside of their core set. Wendy knows healing magic, attack magic, support magic, and obviously enchantment magic and do whatever the hell you want. So her being more so of a guardian figure to the kids, and maybe even helping them out on missions if their parents are out on missions themselves that are incredibly difficult that only the strongest members of the guild can do, would be really cool. She'd be like the Kakashi of their group, or in fairy tale terms, she could pretty much be like a combination of Erza as the powerhouse of like their group, overseeing them, keeping them safe if they decide to go on jobs since they're so young, and the type of Mira big sister role that's kind of overseeing the guild, making sure everything's kind of in order for the most part, and keeping the kids in line from all the roughhousing. Except unlike Mira, she would try and break up any roughhousing and bullshit that would happen. And at this point, Wendy would be an obvious S-class wizard and at the top of her form. I went off on a bit of a tangent there at the moment, but like the main reason why I bring up Wendy is with her high enchantment magic, she would actually be able to undo the Dragonification process. She learned how to do so thanks to Irene in Hunter's Quest when she stopped the Dragonification of the clinging dragon that we saw. I forget his name. I really don't care about the character. He's not that interesting. But he was Dragonifying because he went into Dragon Force. But Irene managed to come up with a spell that would stop the Dragonification, especially of a newly Dragonified character. So Wendy would probably perfect this over the years, and if Natsu and Gajiel, and potentially Sting and Rogue, or any of the other Dragon Slayers wanted to teach Dragon Slayer magic to their kids, to give them, some good powers and to keep Dragon Slayer magic going over the years, then Wendy would use her enchantment magic to kind of separate the Dragonification aspect of it, the concept even of Dragonification, since Wendy can separate concepts as well thanks to Hunter's Quest. Wendy can in fact stop the Dragonification process to happening to these kids, so they could use Dragon Slayer magic as much as they want and grow stronger without the fear of becoming a dragon. So that problem is instantly solved. Now, with that setup out of the way, what would essentially the story be for this hypothetical next generation for Fairy Tail? Well, I say starting out, it'd be pretty slice of life-ish. Be similar to the beginning of Fairy Tail, have the new generation of Team Natsu, basically being like Team Nasha, if I had to say, or Team whatever the hell Jerza's kid, his name would end up being. For posterity's sake, I'll just call him Justin, like the fans that I've seen do, or Simon. I'll just call him Simon, because I feel like they would honor Simon by naming their kid, their firstborn son, Simon, if I have to be honest. Let's say Simon is the leader, because he'd probably be the most logical of the group, and he would try and keep everybody in line, but Wendy would keep them all in check for the most part and look after them while they're doing their own thing. We'll start off with them doing some pretty menial jobs that the kids their age can do until they feel confident enough in their strength to try and do a more difficult job. It's then that we kind of get a parallel to the Galuna Island incident when, let's say, Nasha ends up stealing an S-class job because she's super eager like her dad, inheriting her dad's go-to attitude and just wanting to prove everyone that she's strong enough and to just have fun on a job with her friends, and even lies to them that it isn't an S-class quest so they can all go together until Simon realizes that she kind of screwed them over and now they're going into a quest that they're probably vastly underprepared for. And it being a job that ends up unlocking more of the secrets of the fairy tale world. Primarily, the gods of the fairy tale world. We haven't really dived into that in the mainline series. The most we get are the title gods, like the dragon gods who aren't actual gods, who just have the title of that for their power. And we have the battle gods of Yakuma, if I believe I pronounced that correctly, which we've only seen about 2, maybe 3 of them. But it's not confirmed they're literal deities or if it's just a title similar to the dragon gods. We don't have any confirmation on that. But the obvious one would be Ongsulum, the god of the world that cursed Zareth and even Mavis with the curse of contradiction that started the entirety of the fairy tale story to begin with. And I honestly think if Mashima really wanted to explore that god character, we could use these kids of the fairy tale members to unwittingly take a job that leads into the dark secrets of this entire world. Perhaps we can go to an entire different continent and they sneak away and they get caught up in something that they are underprepared for and they'll have to basically do their very best to just survive. Only for the only character that is around to realize that the kids took an S-class quest to be Wendy. Someone to come in with Carla, obviously, to go and save them. Similar to how Erza went to kind of bring them back to the guild after, Natsu stole that Galuna Island S-class quest. But this way, it's more so to get them out of trouble because they're woefully under power, potentially. And in this new continent, potentially, that we discover, they could see multiple religious orders, sections, or even cult-like figures and groups that worship Ongsulum or a different pantheon of gods that we don't know about around Ongsulum that spans the vast majority of the world, and we uncover more origins of what the world was and can even help us show and see the origin of magic. The one magic that spouted out all the magic in the world. Seeing the true origins and how love is the true essence of magic and explore how people began to discover this. In 100 Years Quest, we got a bit of a glimpse as to how wizards and wizard guilds were created. In this, we could explore the potential gods of the fairy tale universe while also exploring the depths and origins of magic and fully deep dive into it, using this next generation to go places that their parents did not or have not reached yet. And Wendy, like I said, would be the character to bail them out of this situation, but with how serious everything is, she would have to send a message back to the guild to at least let some of the other members know that they are going to need help. But Wendy would have to stay with the kids because they're in too deep of a problem, and so they'd have to try and deal with it themselves. Wendy will be the front runner, the main character for a bit as the guardian of these kids, being the powerhouse protecting them from danger. But there will also be multiple instances where these kids will have to surpass their limits and use their powers in multiple different ways to be able to defend themselves. Whether it be Nasha potentially unlocking Dragon Force and even using Golden Spirit Keys or other spirits that Lucy gave her to help in a battle. Simon, using Celestial Body Magic and Requip Magic in unique ways, just like Erza has done. Gajiel's kids using Solid Script Magic with Iron Dragon Slayer Magic as a team-up thing to help each other out, potentially even also unlocking Dragon Force or a new mode. Greige, using Water Make Magic or a combination of Water and Ice Magic to use in multitude of different ways. Heck, Greige could potentially use Devil Slayer Magic, but I say no because Gray would know how dangerous Devil Slayer Magic is and probably wouldn't teach Greige that until he's much, much older. And all the while, Wendy, being the more experienced character, would have to take on the mentor-teacher role to help them use their powers the best they can, since she is incredibly familiar with how their parents use their abilities, and help them not only master their powers, but help find unique ways to each of these individual kids to use their powers in a way that they themselves are comfortable with and fully expresses who they are as characters and help us dive deeper into this. And this story could have a time skip at some point where these kids are older in their teens and they would have to return to what they're doing and show that they have grown and are beginning to surpass their parents. And this could all lead to potential conflict with Unsulum and maybe learn full reasons as to why Zeref was cursed in the first place outside of breaking the laws of life and death. There could be reveals of a deeper reasoning for Zeref getting that curse, or it could just turn out that Unsulum is a dick for cursing Zeref and later on Mavis, especially the fact that there are multiple different characters throughout Fairy Tail that have altered life and death and controlled life and death in multiple different ways. Especially right now in 100 Years Quest, if we really have to be honest about that. But that's an entirely different discussion. And as cameo characters to show up to help, if the primary Team Natsu members that are away, potentially on another big mission, while the kids are off doing this with Wendy, characters that could show up to help could be potentially the twin dragons of Sabretooth. We could see the Strauss siblings show up to help. We could see Loxus show up. Also, in this series, I would make Loxus the Guildmaster. He just seems to be like the most logical choice to be Guildmaster. It just feels like that has been his arc throughout the entirety of Fairy Tail being led up to. But that's what I got so far on what the potential storyline and way a Fairy Tail Next Generation type sequel would potentially be. Wendy being the mentor / guardian figure for the Next Generation, protecting them from a S-class quest that they had no reason to take because Nasha was a hothead like her father and kind of brought the kids unknowingly to a other continent for a job that ended up spiraling out off the rails, and Wendy would have to teach them to get stronger while also protecting them in a very harsh environment. Meanwhile, we have truths being unveiled about the truth of magic in the world and potentially the god Unsulum that cursed Zeref, and maybe other pantheons of gods to potentially see to fully flesh out more of the Fairy Tail universe. But that's really all I got. What do you guys think? Do you guys like this idea? What would you add? What would you change? What is your idea for a Fairy Tail Next Generation type sequel? Leave your thoughts, opinions, and ideas in the comment section down below. And once more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Also, another thing I would probably add is to not make it so that the previous main characters are not as strong as they are. They should still be absolute powerhouses and living legends that every time they show up, it is an event. Like how when the Sins show up in the Seven Deadly Sins sequel for Knights of the Apocalypse, they're still absolute powerhouses that should not be trifled with or underestimated whatsoever, as they could be a problem. But that's just my honest opinion. But I hope you guys enjoyed this hypothetical, and I hope you all have an awesome day.